Hi, I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avocet Communications and host of StrategyCast. Join me and my guests, innovators, disruptors, and visionaries, as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies that help you transform, scale, and grow your brand. Are you trying to navigate low consumer sentiment, but need help on how to approach the problem with bold, risk-taking strategies? My guest, Karley Cunningham of Big Bold Brand, and I are here to help. Join us on this episode as we roll up our sleeves and talk about practical positivity, ways to leverage AI, and how to define and refine your ideal customer profile. Get ready for insights that can elevate your business strategy only on StrategyCast. And don't forget to check out the most recent issue of the StrategyCast newsletter on StrategyCast.com. Just like this episode, it's full of inspiration and a ton of ideas that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to StrategyCast. I am thrilled to have an encore interview with Karley Cunningham. Welcome.
Hello, I'm excited to be back and to dig into some juicy topics with you today.
Oh, I know. This is juicy, as we would say, because guess what we're going to talk about? We are going to talk about buyer sentiment when the world is in disagreement around everything that is happening and the effects that it has on customer satisfaction, customer acquisition, and what we as marketers can do to really make sure that we're still exciting customers to buy. Before we get there, tell us a little bit more about your background.
Oh boy. I'll come from a different angle, and I may have said this on the last podcast. I've been in the art industry for 25 plus years. I don't know. I've stopped counting, but I've been here a long time. But an interesting and different perspective that I bring is that of a former pro elite athlete, and it makes me very competitive in the way to help our clients succeed, to help them find ways to track what they're doing. Everybody seems to want to go to the quantitative, and I absolutely understand that. But you and I both know that qualitative value is really important as well. I mean, there's certain things like that we help create is one of the things is confidence. And that's, I hate to say it, but that's priceless, right? So yeah. So those two intersections of my professional career in the marketing, comms, branding aspect, along with what brings a lean to following systems, my athletic career, you're on a program, you're following a track, you are taking these steps to move towards something that you want, whether it's to get to the finish line at a certain time, whether it's to get to the start line uninjured and feeling good and confident about what you're going to tackle, whether it's getting through a season and what you want to achieve with that season. Right. All those things apply for me. And it's a lot of the lessons that I teach our clients is not just about how to do what we do. It's about, well, how can you think about this? Because it's not a sprint. It is definitely an endurance race, owning a business, and even marketing and branding. It's an endurance race. You're in it for the long haul.
And it's one of the reasons why I love this topic so much, because I think quite often, if I take a look at the board meetings that I've been in the last many months with the brands that we're working on, I do think, let's face facts, first of all. The consumer sentiment, at least here in the United States, is at an all-time low. It averages between a 63, 65, 72. Great consumer sentiment, like everyone's feeling wonderful about what's happening in the world around them, is about 150, but positivity really starts at about 100. So this is the climate in which we are trying to increase revenue, increase customer acquisition and maintain or increase profitability. It's tough. And and these discussions taking place in the boardroom, if I reflect on all of them, with the exception of a few meetings, I think that it's typically marketers that are coming to the table with the positivity that's needed. What advice do you have for our listeners around how they can maintain that and keep it going and not give up?
That's a great question. And your segue into this question about being positive is it's always a choice. So are we as marketers choosing to continue to feed the fear loops? Are we leaning on people in a manner that treats them as if they're not human? I know we're going to talk about ICPs in a bit. And so are we just leaning on them as they're an ICP? They're details and data on a page, or are we recognizing the humanity in our marketing and how it affects people? Do we want to continue to fearmonger, or do we want to be the light that draws people in and gives people some ease or some space to breathe or some positive data and facts and helps them see the opportunity, leading them to a brighter future?
Yeah, and I think I think it's just innate. Most marketers, have that kind of a mindset, but I think it's with practicality as well. You can't just sugarcoat something and expect that the C-suite's going to, that they're going to respect you for it. It's the practicality of it. I was in a meeting last week with a fabulous client that we've worked with for, over a decade. They're wonderful. And they're going through budget cuts right now. We're up about 3 points. We're typically up 5 or 6 points, every year. And so even though they're up, which is much better than most, they're down to plan. And we were presenting the budget for next year last week, and there are a lot of budget cuts taking place in the organization. And the marketing VP flat out asked, "Are we on the chopping block?" And he said, "No, you're not. We need you. We need what you're doing to assure that we can achieve the growth ongoing." That mindset is what not everyone's dealing with right now.
No, definitely not. In that, one of the things that as I look outside at the mountains and the trees and I'm watching the colors turn, I think the thing that we forget on the grander scale is that everything goes through seasons. And ultimately, nature has laws. And I believe, and I've seen that we as humans, we try and skirt them and move around them. And what I'm talking about is you cannot continue to grow year over year over year without pruning the tree, so to speak. You can't continue to grow if, the stream that runs beside the tree is not flowing. So everything goes through cycles. It's important to recognize what season are we in right now,
right?
And what do you do and what works for nature in a certain season. And that doesn't mean you're not stepping forward. It just means you're recognizing what's going on right now and what's coming in and going out from the perspective of, in our business, do we need to do some pruning? Do we need to do some watering? Do we need to move the tree? What does that look like in the laws of nature, and stop trying to chase consistent growth year after year after year after year, all year long, because it's not realistic. We can't escape those patterns.
Yeah, I agree. I often see that, many brands decide that they're going to just play it easy, that they're going to play it safe. And we've done, we're not in a recession by any stretch of the imagination, although consumer sentiment feels like we are, or not. And we've given lots of presentations over the years on, recession-proofing your brand. I've talked about it in a lot of columns and on the show as well. And recession-proofing your brand also means taking on some additional risk, but seizing the day with opportunity when most competition is, not rolling up their sleeves. They're rolling back everything. It's an opportunity for brands to really take a stronghold and a foothold on what the competition is not doing.
Yep, 100%. And one of the things we talked about in the green room was if you've, zig versus zag, if you've been zagging or if the competition is zagging, then you need to zig. And in zigging, be decisive and pick your position and path.
Well, and I think, with that point, it is a time to really do a reflection and gain some insights on whether or not you're in that sea of sameness, because many brands, at least 8 out of 10, are currently reside in the sea of sameness, and there's nothing they're doing to differentiate the brand, to create distinction, to truly give customers a reason to buy.
Yeah. And I know that when sentiments are low, when folks are feeling disconcerted, it's hard to convince them to push away from the pack. It's hard to step out. It just challenges everything we are as human in our wanting to stay safe. But there's the risk that you talk about and the opportunity of, well, what if we push ourselves out into that blue ocean and we're seen as different? And maybe in the first few steps, you find that that's not resonating. But the thing is nothing is a permanent decision, and we get to continue to zig. So we're going to tweak it this way. We're going to come back that way and see what lands. And that's why I love test and measure.
I do too. I think testing, this is such a perfect time to test, right? Because the audience mindset is at such a different stage. That it really allows you opportunities to open up new methodologies, new approaches, new messaging, new thinking, to really see what you can do in a very tough market to get someone to change the mind and want to move forward. I also think that what a lot of brands are not is bold. And this is a time to be bold. And it does not matter. It's not just creative execution, but it could be a bold thought leadership series, or it could be a bold approach to a media buy, or a bold approach to a PR campaign that's going to be something so different that the market's never seen anything like it. I'm reflecting as I'm saying that out loud. We were a part of the team to launch the first digital camera for Pentax. And it was so small, we were able to fit it into an Altoid box. And we sent the camera to the media in an Altoid box. That is bold. That is unique. That's different. People don't see it. That's how you stand out. That's how you get someone on the trade show floor to stop in 3 seconds instead of walk by or stop in 15, have a attitude and continue on. That boldness is something that this agency prides itself in. And I know it's a part of your namesake as well.
It is, absolutely. To talk about another example, one of our clients who is a marketing and PR firm, they, in the pandemic, were asked to take over the running of what is, I'll call, an association in their industry. Because the owners who had started it, the business owners that they're associated with they just didn't have the capacity, given that they're in travel and tourism, to run it. They had to forge their own path and do exactly what we're talking about here for their own businesses. So they asked this marketing and PR firm, we know that you're smart, you understand what we're doing, you know what we're trying to achieve, you believe in community, can you put someone in place to run this? And they did. And collectively, they carried everyone through. So in being bold, can you take that leadership role or a collective leadership role? And then what they did is they ended up acquiring that association. And everybody went, wait, what? And it didn't make sense. He explored the opportunity and how they could support the greater community and the greater part of the industry. It made complete sense. So it's that just because everybody else doesn't think it's going to make sense, follow your gut instinct, follow the breadcrumbs, the red thread of that, play out the scenarios. I love scenario planning.
Yeah.
You know, what does
Yeah.
it look like here? What does it look like there? Put it all on the board and then have, a discussion with your board about it, a discussion with your team about it. Because when you can make it tangible,
Mhm.
it gets really obvious really quick.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the areas that I think people can take too far when it comes to being bold is not holding on to the brand identity. Like now is not a time to completely rebrand.
No,
It's
no.
just not it's not the time to do that. So maintaining the brand identity, making sure that the core beliefs and the mission of the business are the same, because that is what people already feel most likely comfortable with.
Coming back to the analogy of the tree, those are the things that your business is rooted in.
Right.
And if those roots don't hold deep, you're done for.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And none of this can happen without being strategic. And one of the areas that I think people can really, really lean into right now is that ICP that you mentioned at the front of the show, and really understanding that the ideal customer profile, that customer that's tried and true, has been buying for a long time, they do not waver, is really what you need to be able to capitalize on and find more of them at this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And interestingly enough, I don't know what you find, but typically when we start working with clients, about 95, if not higher percent, don't have deep and thorough ICPs.
I agree.
They're light. They were talking about personas. I mean, if you want to see me bash my head off the wall, come to me and be like, "Yeah, we're clear. We have personas."
And 15 of
No.
them, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right. And so treat them as people and ask yourself, what do we need to know and understand them? How are they feeling right now? What's influencing their actions? What do they want versus what do they need? There's always this is one of the pieces that we do in our profiles is we always ask our clients, okay, so your customers come to you telling you that they want something. Typically that want is based on the surface level things, aka I'm lacking the word when you go to the doctor to get diagnosed, symptoms. Typically they're symptomatic,
Right.
but what is the root? What's the root cause of what they're telling you they want? That will uncover the needs. And often I say it's proof. They come to you saying, we want help with this, but what they need is proof that you can help them with that. What they need is a partner, not a vendor. How are you providing proof that you're not a vendor, that you partner, that you're there to be of service? Testimonials, case studies, those types of things.
Yeah. And sitting down with your current customers and gaining those insights to develop better strategies to, obtain more of that look-alike audience is something that I think people could really be leaning into at this stage. I think there's a bit of a cautionary tale here because we're talking about brands typically that just have a stronger foothold in the market. Their awareness is higher, which is why a rebrand at this stage is not a good thing to do. But at the same time, brand building and the very high level side of the funnel, I think is something that a lot of people should be leaning into. There's typically fire sales. Although media costs have increased, over 60% in the last 4 or 5 years, they're still going to have fire sales, and it's an opportunity. If you're a media-rich company, it's an opportunity for you to be able to buy more at a lower cost. If you're in thought leadership or really content heavy, what you can do to create, we call it a tsunami effect, to slice and dice the content in such a way that you've got more pieces going out with an original piece. Those sort of approaches, I think, really help that high level brand understanding.
I want to come back to the term rebranding for a second. I find that term freaks people out because everything doesn't need to be a rebrand.
Right.
if you are, again, coming back to testing and measuring, if you're checking in on, are we still current? Are we still relevant? Has a new possible customer moved into our profile because they're similar to our ideal, but they're slightly different? Can we open a space for them, which is a new profile, which allows us the opportunity to sell the same thing, but maybe it solves a different problem? I'll give you an example. So when there are certain clients that come to us because they have the near far problem, which I also call it the Grover problem. So they're far back in their PhD level expertise, they're launching a new product or service, or they've been in the market for a while selling to a fairly small group and now they want to break out. But the problem is they're so smart and so steeped in their knowledge, they don't know how to have the conversation that you and I are having. They don't know how to come to the front and break down all the scientific magic, right, to say, hey, this is why you need my product. So we solve that problem with our Surefire method. We also use the Surefire method to help companies that are slightly irrelevant in a current time tweak the pieces so that they are carrying forward what works, but also evolving their brand. So you can use that same methodology to identify another audience without having to rebrand. It's about, like you said, going to the data. What's it telling us? Who and what do we need to be now for people that doesn't move us away from our fundamental beliefs and truths and our foundations and evolve into this new space? I find that is an inexpensive way to quote unquote rebrand. It's just updating.
Why don't you believe, or I shouldn't post this that way, why don't more leads place a focus on brand? There are many companies out there with very weak brands, and quite frankly, their products are typically better than what the brand says they are, and they just don't feel the need to invest.
The question that always gets posed, not always, gets posed to me a lot, or I can see it at a certain point in the sales process and a certain point in a conversation where, the proposal's on the table and the CEO or the key stakeholder will just pause. And if they don't ask me this, I will ask them, so are you thinking right now, does this fluffy stuff really work? Because time and time again, I have heard that question asked of me. So if we invest in this branding, what's our return? How is it going to work for us? What's it going to do? Is it going to solve this problem? So I was lucky enough to do a research study, and we're just compiling all the results. And one of the things that came back is the belief around what brand is. And it's almost heart-crushing for me, but it didn't surprise me that most leadership team members, most business owners still see brand as their logo, fonts, colors. Identity was a word I really wish we had dug into. Do you mean visual identity or do you mean just their overall identity? But still, they're leaning on the wrong things to create a great brand. They're not understanding that your brand is your reputation times your exposure. Brand is an end result, and it's everything that you do. It's all the touch points that your customers have with you that forms their opinion of who you are.
Yeah. If you've got the opportunity to work with an Avocet or a Karley during time periods like this to really determine what the brand strength is and where you can tweak, where you can refresh, where you can redo, rebrand, whatever it might be, now's the time to do it because in most situations, the competition is going to be rolling back. I also think, so that's like one strategy that could be adjusted. We've talked about the ICP and making sure that you're really focusing on that. I also think that really understanding more in-depthly the market condition and what is affecting the buyer change regarding mindset is something really important to get a grasp on.
There's so many resources out there using a platform like Perplexity. to do those searches. I mean, when before have we had access to something that provides us the references and citations?
Right.
It's absolutely brilliant. You can go and have a conversation with AI through platforms like ChatGPT. It's never been easier to find the answers to these questions. And I think that the marketers who are listening, which I know is a big part of your audience, are likely going to be on board or they've dabbled in it. I'm going to say go deeper. I spend 10, 15 minutes at least twice a week just watching YouTube videos. Okay, what else can I do with this? How
Right.
else do I use it? How else can it help me do my job better? And I think for those who are in other departments but really interested in marketing who are listening, our C-suite listeners, I'm still hearing a lot of people hesitant to dive in, and there seems to me to be a lot of excuses. Of course, do your due diligence on what the legalities of this are. Start playing with it.
Yeah.
I have managed to achieve some phenomenal things in just a few minutes.
Right. I was having a great conversation with a friend of mine who happens to be a CMO this morning. And we were talking about the fact that most C-suites are relying on marketing to really push the AI narrative within an organization. What's surprising to me about that is this. So to me, it says that these individuals believe that generative AI is an answer to reduce costs for marketing. We recently we're hiring people at Avocet. We've got ads running. We get about 200, 300, 400 resumes a week. Our HR team is outsourced. So our operations team decided to build a custom chat that has our job descriptions, and we fed that in. Then as we feed in each resume, it tells us if it meets 85% of the criteria that is in the JD, we will go ahead and take a look at the resume. This is pre-resume screening. If it does not, it goes into another area within the GPT that actually sends out through another piece of tech that's attached to everything, a customized, personalized decline letter. That is operational efficiency at its best. And that's where I think a lot of discussions are not taking place. I've got example after example after example of what we're doing it from a Marcom standpoint, but operations can be doing this as well.
Yeah. I would love to see all departments playing with it and figure out one thing a week that it can help you reduce 30 minutes of time. That's 2 hours. Doing my math.
Something close to it.
2 hours a month. Okay, but that's 24 hours a year. If our bill rate is $200, what does that look like? Well, what if we could save 3 hours a week?
Yeah. I've got a great tool for you, by the way. It's called Chat Hub. And I've got it open on my screen right now. And Chat Hub it's a hub for all the different AI systems that you use. You put one question in, and it goes to each of those AI systems or one prompt in, and it brings you back information. So right now I've got ChatGPT, Gemini Cloud, Llama, Bing, Perplexity, and Mixtral loaded into my hub.
Amazing.
That I can just get all this insight back from. It's really, really a cool tool. I think the other area that I'd love to dive in just the closing couple minutes here is the use of social media. It is, strategically executed. It really provides people, from a paid standpoint, from a content standpoint, a very, very authentic and trustworthy way to push out incredible messages to build that trust, which is hard to gain right now.
I agree. Whenever before have we been able to leverage tools like AI to create one piece of content and run it through a platform and say, our audience on Instagram is this, our audience on LinkedIn is that, and our audience on name any other, maybe you were testing out a new one just for test and measure purposes to see if your audience is there, create 6 pieces of content from this one piece of content to send out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And all of this is as important as the ROI that it creates. What advice do you have for our audience on where they can start to look for some of these signs and really track it?
Yeah, ROI is a big question, and where I want to go to, because it's my area of expertise, is how do we track ROI of brand? And if we're going to track, let's go to success first, because I think there's a difference between success and ROI when we're talking about brand. So success is uncovered. Is your brand being successful? Are your brand successful? Simply asked is, are people saying what you want them to say about your business, your product? Do you have those listening pieces in place even to track that and being able to bring that data back? So asking your whole team, listen or ask and document what people are saying about us.
Yeah.
Because what people say about you forms your reputation. Coming back to the 2 pieces of a brand equation, it is your reputation times your exposure. So if nobody's talking about you, you've got an exposure or marketing problem. If people aren't saying what you want them to say about you, then you've got a brand clarity problem. Now let's go to ROI. Because it's intangible, how do we get to, is it boosting our profitability? Well, is it attracting you more ideal clients? Are you generating more right fit referrals? And have you been able to raise your price at all? If you can take all 3 of those pieces and get the dollar amount value, you can add those all together. So it's not a marketing, the ad went out, did it work, did it not work? It's not an A plus B equals C equation. It's what I call a long tail equation. And you have to get a little creative, but look at, what are our business goals? Great. Then what do we need to track in relation to that? Excellent. And then figure out the equation for each of those and build yourself that long tail equation to find out if there is ROI. It's not the easiest thing to do, but I find it really nerdy and fun when you can crack your own equation to figure out, okay, what do we need to track? How do we figure out the dollar value? And then how do we look at, if we're working with more ideal clients and we're charging more and we're generating more ideal client referrals who are converting to ideal clients and they're all easier to work with, well, how much in dollar savings or dollar ad is that for us?
Well, I, for one, love your nerdiness. So thank you. Thank you for that. It's one of the things that I just adore about you, and how you just, a lot of people would call it a rabbit hole, but when Karley comes out of that rabbit hole with like something really cool and an insight and a KPI that people just never knew they had in front of them, it's a real gift. We've talked about so much today. There's this mood. You're up in Canada. We're here in the United States. I spent a lot of time in Europe over the summer. It's everywhere. And I think that's really important for people to realize. It's everywhere. It's just not, a North American thing. And as we conclude today, what final advice do you have for the marketers or even some of the business folks listening today on what they can do within their organization and their audiences to really help with this cloud of uncertainty that is just kind of looming, on top of us all?
I'm going to say, get in conversation and control the conversation in a manner of, hey, we want to talk about what's working for you. We want to talk about what opportunities you see ahead of you that you maybe don't know how to seize right now, but can we have a collective brainstorming session? How can we be of service? I mean, you and I both are big fans and friends of Susan Beyer, who is her talk, Be Relentlessly Helpful, is how can you be relentlessly helpful right now? Even if those folks don't buy from you right now, you're planting the seeds and you're nurturing the relationships so that when things start to turn around, and they're going to tip at different times for different people, you're going to be farming what will be the future return. Never know what people will say. I'm always shocked when and I get in those conversations and they're like, oh, I have a Karley problem. I'm like, a what? And it comes from, they know I like to go down the rabbit holes. They know I love to solve the problems. They understand that I'm a strategic thinker and can put the pieces together. So if folks know what you're good at, you'd be surprised what they'll ask for your help with.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Incredible insights. What is the best way for our audience to get a hold of you?
My website is bigboldbrand.com, and I'm always on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So Karley Cunningham.
We spend a lot of time on LinkedIn together.
We do.
Yeah.
That's how we stay in touch.
I know.
It's the new Facebook for business.
Yeah, it really
should I have said that?
I spend a lot of time there. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, you can email me, Lori, at StrategyCast.com, and visit StrategyCast.com and sign up for a newsletter while you're there as well. Karley, thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.